All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. We're going to talk about how to design intuitive Salesforce user interfaces to improve ROI. My name is Diana Hurst. I am with the CRM Science team and I'm the marketing director. We have a jam-packed webinar coming up for you today, but before we dive in, we have a couple of people on the call who may not be as familiar with CRM Science. So I'd like to give you a quick overview of our company. We are a Salesforce consulting firm. We implement and customize Salesforce for companies that either want to get started on the platform or that are looking to optimize their use of the platform. And what that really means is that we develop end-to-end Salesforce solutions, right? So what you see here on the right-hand side, we do everything from architecture and development to data migrations, third-party integrations as well. We can take care of that all. And also, we are the only Salesforce consulting company that offers user experience design as part of the Salesforce journey. And we'll learn more about that during this webinar, obviously. We've worked with clients in a variety of industries, but there are several that we specialize in. For example, we have a lot of clients in the FinServe and insurance industries. We work with manufacturing and senior living companies, but there are also other industries that we welcome. We have some clients in media as well, and so on. And something that we are incredibly proud of and that I want to highlight on this slide as well is that we are a 3-time Partner Innovation Award winner. These are recognitions from Salesforce for partners that have demonstrated excellence and most of all value to the clients that they work with. And then lastly, also on this slide, we recently received the 2019 Lightning Master designation, which is a Salesforce partner badge that so far has only been achieved by 10 consulting firms in the ecosystem, and we are one of them. Some housekeeping for the coming 30 to 45 minutes. We are recording this webinar and you will be receiving a link to a replay as well as these slides. So no need to take lots of notes. And since we have a few people on the call today, we won't be doing, you can't ask your questions live to us, but we do encourage you to take advantage of the Q&A functionality that we have here in Zoom. And we'll take your questions at the end of the webinar. And if we don't get to all of the questions, don't worry. We can reach out to you via email after the webinar as well to address your questions. Today's webinar will be presented by Phillip Bolognini. Phillip is our user experience designer here at CRM Science, and he works with our clients as well as our internal development team to really reimagine the way a Salesforce org can look and work. Ultimately all to enhance the user experience and to really enable users with the right tools at the right places at the right time. So with that, I want to hand it over to Phil. Phil, are you ready?
Yes, Diana, thank you.
Take it away.
All right, thanks. And thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm very excited to discuss how to design intuitive user interfaces in Salesforce so that you can improve ROI. Real quick, let's go over some of the things we're going to talk about in today's webinar. We're going to discuss why user experience design is important, and we'll cover some top Salesforce user experience strategies as well. Then we'll go over some user experience research methods, and we'll finish up with the Lightning Design System and some of our favorite features. So let's start with why user experience design. Why does it matter? Well, the biggest reason is that first impressions are crucial, right? Often what happens are users make up their mind whether they like an interface the very first time they use it. And this can even happen within minutes of using a system. So that means that emotions are powerful. Emotions are powerful, but that can work for you because a good user experience design can tap into that power. The emotional impact that we feel is just as much part of the user experience. So ultimately, this can drive user adoption. This leads to improved ROI. So for this reason, user experience design is very important because it ultimately correlates to increased user adoption and increased ROI. So now I want to take a poll and ask you guys a question. How many of you are currently utilizing user experience design in your Salesforce implementation? And Diana, if we could bring that poll up. Yep, thank you.
Yep. So yeah, everyone on the call, feel free to take the poll, and we'll give you about 20 to 30 seconds or whenever people have voted, and then I'll share the results with you. Okay, votes are coming in. Anyone else who wants to get a last minute vote in? Thank you. All right. So
All right,
interesting results.
Yeah, about 31% yes, 50% no, and 19% not sure. So still a very good amount, and hopefully after today's webinar, some of you that aren't using user experience design as a strategy in your Salesforce implementation can start doing that. And hopefully this discussion will help get you there. So let's talk about some top Salesforce UX strategies. Our first strategy is number of clicks matter. And this is a really important one because we can empower the user by allowing them to accomplish their tasks as efficiently as possible. One really easy way to do this is through click reduction. The main point here is, why should it take 3 clicks to achieve something that could only be done in 1? And users will appreciate this efficiency because it will allow them to do their job faster. Who doesn't want that, right? A good example of this would be if you have a drop-down menu and there's only 1 item in it. This could just be a one-click button or link. Another good example is batch processing. And once again, here the idea is, why force users to delete records one at a time when they could just be deleted with using one delete command? We should look for opportunities to reduce repetitive tasks and save the user time, because this will provide a much better user experience. We can also maximize efficiency by giving prominence to the most relevant information. So in the example of list views, which field types are most appropriate and which are just distracting? Another great strategy is to reduce clutter on the page, because this makes the interface more intuitive, and it also makes it more efficient for the user. So now I'd like to talk about minimum viable products, or MVPs. And in our last webinar, we mentioned Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And this is where the term became popular. So it's important to recognize that with MVPs, they're different from prototypes, wherein prototypes are traditionally used to simulate the future product for stakeholders. MVPs are just the core features of a product's value proposition. And they're very important because they help us mitigate risk for our projects. They do this by allowing us to get user buy-in early. And by getting user buy-in early, we can pivot our strategy if we need to. If we're on a path that we know won't work, why continue down that path? MVPs allow us to remain flexible and cater our strategy to user feedback. So as I mentioned earlier, user adoption translates to ROI, and this makes user buy-in very important. So in a few slides, we'll discuss how we can accomplish this by doing user research. But for now, let's finish up with our last top strategy, which is mobile first. And this can refer to a business strategy, but it can also refer to a design approach as well. However, in both contexts, it involves considering the user experience on mobile first and using that as a pattern for the rest of the solution. In today's mobile world, there's lots of devices and screen sizes out there. So we need to consider the device of our users, and this helps focus our strategy. We should also consider which features may be unavailable on mobile. In a mobile-first strategy, this will help us not waste time on a feature set that only half the audience are actually using. But most importantly, when it comes to a mobile-first strategy, we need to include a mobile strategy at the start of our project. And it can't be an afterthought if we want a good user experience. So when it comes to mobile design, the challenge is limited screen real estate. So we need to do more with less, right? Well, the key here is that it's easier to expand a mobile design into a wider desktop design than it is vice versa. And later, we'll discuss how we can accomplish this using the Lightning Design System. But lastly, a mobile first strategy means keeping content fluid, and that's so that it can look good on mobile, it can look good on desktop, and we can do this by keeping content brief and bite-sized so that it works well in columns and stretches in and out of grid layouts as the device screen changes. Now let's talk about user research. Why should we do user research? Well, as I mentioned before, we want to quickly learn if our product has real value, right? So the sooner we find this out, the less expensive it's going to be to adjust our strategy. And the key there is to fail fast and succeed faster. So the goal with user research is going to be that we want to get real feedback from real people. That way we're making decisions based on empirical evidence and not just assumptions. Oftentimes we have a habit of building solutions to suit our needs. However, the truth is that our users are not us, which means that their needs are different. So let's start with our first research method, surveys. And surveys are a great way to start doing user research if you've never done it before. This is because you can easily cover a large population sample. This makes it ideal for enterprise-level companies, but surveys are also great for any size company because they're efficient and low cost. This means that they can easily be tailored to fit any budget. It's important to realize, however, that the larger the population sample, the more helpful the data is going to be. If the surveys are anonymous, that's going to help people feel more comfortable leaving honest feedback, and that's really what we're looking for in a survey. It can even increase the response rate if people know that their answers are anonymous. So there's a lot of survey tools out there, but one that I'd like to mention is typeform.com. And this is a really great tool because the interface is very visual and it allows for a lot of customization. They have a basic plan, which is free, but if you need more options, they also have paid plans as well. Our next research method is focus groups, and focus groups are simply moderated discussions with a group of users. So ideally here, you're going to want to assign a non-stakeholder as a moderator. The reason that we want to do this is so that they take a neutral position and give everyone a fair chance to voice their opinions. Focus groups are great for answering attitudinal questions. So this is, what are people saying? How do they feel? What are they saying specifically about the interface? One of the benefits of a focus group is that we have the opportunity to ask for clarification, whereas you might not have that chance in a survey. This way we can get some of the thinking behind the responses. And our last research method is individual interviews. And like focus groups, we can get that more in-depth information by asking follow-up questions, and we can even observe the user firsthand as they perform their tasks. Since it's a one-on-one setting, we can explore some more sensitive topics, and we may even get honest opinions without the bias of a group setting. A really powerful tool for accomplishing this and other types of research is usertesting.com. So this is a premium service, but it's very powerful, and you can do just about any type of user research that you can think of using this tool. Now I'd like to talk about user personas. And while they're not a specific research method, they are extremely helpful for the team to gain a better understanding of the target audience. Through user personas, we can learn about the user's goals, their challenges, and better connect with them to understand their pain points. Personas are also a powerful tool to align stakeholders and focus the discovery process. This will get everyone on the team speaking the same language. They also better prepare us for any user objections, which allows us to quickly customize our strategy accordingly. But remember, with user personas, they're only as powerful as the research that goes behind them. And now I want to take a look at an example of a user persona. Here we have Mark Valentino. He's a sales rep that wants to convert more leads and close more deals. However, some of the challenges he faces is that the current software makes it difficult to understand who's ready to buy. In addition, he has many manual tasks he needs to perform that take away from his sales opportunities. He's also not very technical and doesn't think he has time to learn a new system. By encapsulating some of the thoughts of our target audience, we can craft the user experience to drive home our messaging. In this case, that Salesforce will help you convert more leads and close more deals. If you're not in the habit of already making user personas, it's a good idea to build a bunch, a few for each of your power users, for example, sales, marketing, service, etc. This will help give a bigger picture and also find similarities between those who are using Salesforce differently. All right, our last topic for today's discussion is the Lightning Design System, and we're going to go over some of our favorite features. The Lightning Design System is great because you can build an interface that has the Lightning look and feel without reverse engineering the code. And in fact, if you use the Lightning Design System classes in your markup, you get the Lightning look and feel without writing any CSS whatsoever. So here we can see an example of a grid layout. It works well because it's in columns and is reactive and has a mobile-first approach. And using the Lightning Design System for layout has many advantages. One is consistency, because the padding and the margin in between the grids updates whenever Salesforce updates their UI. SLDS grids are based on CSS Flexbox, and this is where they get their power because it's based on a very powerful tool of CSS that allows you to control the layout regardless of device. So once again, no matter what screen your user is using, you're going to get the same user experience across devices. And SLDS cards and boxes have a clean look, and you see them all over the Lightning experience. So when you use them, your app will look just like Lightning. Icons are a great way to quickly convey information versus simple text. And they also provide some visual interest without the need for uploading images. So the Salesforce Lightning Design System icon library is extensive, and it's also organized into categories. So it's a great resource to cover the majority of use cases. In the latest iteration of the Lightning Design System, you can use icons in a simple setting or an attribute. There's no more fumbling around with complicated SVGs. And in addition, tooltips are also great because they're small and they have a light footprint, so they don't hamper the design. These are extremely helpful in informing the user how certain features work, but they're also great because they're an easy way to add some interactivity on the page. And lastly, some of our favorite messaging features are toasts and modals. And toasts are great because they brilliantly encapsulate the LDS essence, and the latest update allows for the color as well as the duration and icons that you use with them to be controlled with simple settings rather than building them from scratch. And modals, which are aptly named, can be used anytime you need to display layered content. The most frequent use cases for these are record creation and editing, as well as various types of wizard. But they enhance the user experience by allowing tasks to be completed where the user is so that they don't have to navigate to a different page. So let's recap. Today we talked about how user experience design is important because it contributes to higher adoption and improved ROI. We also discussed some top UX strategies like click reduction for efficiency, the use of MVPs to be agile and flexible, and using a mobile-first approach. As Diana also mentioned earlier on in this webinar, CRM Science is the only consulting firm with UX services as part of the Salesforce journey, and we do that according to certain baseline principles. In our discussion today, we also reviewed some different methods for conducting user experience research, as well as examples of online tools like Typeform and usertesting.com. We looked at a user persona and saw that it can align teams and stakeholders. And lastly, we explored the Lightning Design System and shared some of our favorite features so that we can keep interfaces looking clean and consistent with the Salesforce ecosystem. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Diana.
Thank you, Phil. That was great. Before we jump into Q&A, I want to make sure that everyone on the call today is aware of how you can stay connected or get connected with CRM Science. The easiest way to do that, if you're not an existing client of ours, is to go to our website and use the live chat feature or the contact form on our contact page to reach out. And then we're also pretty active on social media, on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And so feel free to reach out to us there because we keep track of our messages there as well. Next, I am sure that most of you know that Dreamforce is coming up very soon. I believe we are less than 60 days away. And the CRM Science team is actually hosting a really fun and exciting party. We are calling it the #DF19 Giant Puzzle Party. And so we hope that you can make it. We'll make sure that the link is added in this slide deck so you can sign up there. We'll have a pinball machine, giant Connect Fours, giant Jenga, giant cubes, and more puzzles and games. We'll have food and drinks as well. So we truly hope that you can join us there. And now we're ready for questions. Let's see if we have questions. Phil, do you want to take a look?
Sure. So it looks like we have a question here. How do you directly, specifically show what's in it for me to the dev team? This is a really good question. I would say the easiest way to convey the value of UX design is to experience it firsthand. If you have any examples, whether they're, even if they're not from current projects, they could even be just from websites or apps that you think have a really good user experience design. It usually becomes pretty clear quickly whether the user was a focus of the design. So I think examples are a really good way to quickly convey that. I think also developers take a lot of pride in their work. So perhaps by explaining some of the benefits of user experience design and how it increases adoption, I think this could go a long way for motivating people, knowing that their work is going to actually be seen by more people and increase adoption as well. Great question, Meyer. Thank you.
How about this question? What if my company doesn't care about a mobile strategy? Our staff is not on the go and mostly fills their day at their desk.
I would say if a company is not convinced on a mobile first strategy, that there's really only advantages to a mobile first strategy and not really that many disadvantages, if any. One of the biggest advantages of a mobile first strategy is that the designs often look good and work well on mobile and desktop. So that usually happens because you end up focusing on just the core features with a mobile design. It helps kind of streamline the design as well as reduce clutter. And even if the users aren't heavily using mobile devices, using a mobile first approach will better position you for when they do. And it's probably only a matter of time that mobile will be prevalent in your organization, because, with our culture, how prevalent mobile devices are, they only continued to become more prevalent, and more interfaces are trending towards mobile first. So it's great from a design approach, and it's also great from a business strategy as well.
Yep. Makes total sense. I have another one for you here. What type of questions are important to ask in a user survey?
That's a great question too. So, of course, when you're doing a survey, you're going to want to tailor it to your specific target audience and messaging. But some really good baseline things to ask are what the user likes or dislikes. So, for example, what feature can you not live without in this interface? Or which feature do you think, do you use the least, or is the least important? Or you could even ask if there's any functionality that you think is missing. I think a good idea as well is to also ask some questions that can be rated from a scale of 1 to 10, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the interface? This is important because that'll help give you a baseline. And then in future surveys, you can see any progress and strategize accordingly. It's also probably a good idea to ask what percentage of your daily tasks do you use this interface? That way you can get a feel for who's using it the most, and you can give more weight to those responses.
Excellent. Any other questions you see that you can take?
I'm looking over them right now. What 2 to 3 things do teams miss or hurry through when they start a project? This is a really good one. I think I mentioned during the webinar, mobile can't be an afterthought. If you have it in mind, top of mind, as you're developing your solution, then the mobile experience is going to be just as great as the desktop one. I think another thing that people often don't think about is the user right out of the box. I think sometimes user experience doesn't come up until there's a bad one. But, like I mentioned with user personas, if you have those built out, that's really going to help focus everyone on the team. And, right down to the developers. It's going to get everybody talking the same language, and it's going to help everyone work towards a common goal.
Some really great questions. Anything else you see, Phil, or are we ready to wrap up for today?
Are there any standard changes your team makes to the out-of-the-box design when working on projects? I would say, yeah, the biggest one, like we talked about, is click reduction, and number of clicks matter. I think that's often the first thing I go to when I'm working on either a mockup or a user flow, is how many clicks is this taking to achieve this, and can this be done quicker? I think one of the best ways that you can keep the user at the focus of your design is to just imagine them using the interface, and just look for ways that you can help them to do their job quicker. And put yourself in the user's shoes. What would I think if I was using this? What would I think about it? Thanks for the question, Brennan.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think those were all the questions.
Yep, looks like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing your expertise, Phil. This was great. And thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We really appreciate your time. Like I said, we'll make sure that you receive the link to the replay as well as these slides. So look out for that email either later today or tomorrow morning. And of course, feel free to share it with your coworkers who couldn't be here today. So yeah, with that, again, thanks for being here, and we hope to see you again next time on the next webinar or at Dreamforce in November. So take care, everyone. Thanks.